Good evening and welcome to this month's Jinmi live tasting. First of all, allow me to reassure you that you have tuned into the correct YouTube or Facebook channel. This is not just a sauna channel. And there's a very good reason that I'm sat in a sauna, slowly starting to sweat. And that is that this month on Jinmi, of course, we are featuring the mighty Kyrö distillery from Finland, which of course is the home of the sauna. And I am fortunate enough to be a serious sauna advocate and to have a sauna at my home. So I thought, whilst we welcome this month's guest on, it would be fun to do this tasting from a sauna. I've got lovely Kyrö gin here and some tonic water that I'm going to need to drink pretty shortly because it's starting to get hot in here. But without further ado, I'm going to introduce our guest, which is Miika Lipiäinen, who is one of the co-founders of Kyrö Distillery in Finland, and now lives in London, actually. And unfortunately for him, much to his disgust, he's not in a sauna, but he is at home in London. Hey, Miika.
Hello.
How are you?
Thanks for having me. I'm good. I would be better in a sauna, but I'm good. Just sat here in London.
I do want to talk sauna with you, but I know we've got to talk about your delicious gin as well and the distillery. But I think probably worth mentioning right from the start that the whole founding of your distillery, I believe, was conceived in a sauna. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. There's an old saying that Finnish business ideas and families are conceived in a sauna, but I think that's almost like over essentializing a very sort of peaceful, relaxing, almost a holy place for us, which the sauna is. But the thing is that it's kind of like the pub for us. We don't have a third space really where we go to meet friends and just hang out. So when a Finn wants to open up about their life or see a friend after a long time, they will call them up and say, you want to come to my place or can I come to your place for a sauna? And that's how it works.
Yeah, but I think it's I guess a bit more of a communal social thing than it is here in the UK, because for the most part in saunas we're usually sat in there maybe with one friend or often just with strangers. And in Finland pretty much every house has one, right? It's kind of standard, or at least your neighbor does, right?
Yeah, I think we have about 2 million saunas because so many of them are just in families' apartments and every public building has one. And if you're a housing complex, like if you live in an apartment building, at least the apartment building will have a sauna, if not the apartment. So yeah, it's such a common thing for us, and I don't think it's sort of like a super surprise that even for us, we as a company, we were passing around some rye whiskey and we were thinking, why doesn't, we love saunas, but we also love rye. So why doesn't somebody start up a distillery based on just learning how to distill rye in all its forms?
Yeah. So talk to us a little bit about the founding of the distillery, because I know rye is kind of at the heart of it. I mean, perhaps maybe actually before that, if you wouldn't mind just briefly giving us a sort of synopsis of distilling in Finland, before you guys came along and since.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we've been a meat, potatoes, and vodka people for a long time, and we felt obviously that needed a bit of changing. There wasn't much of a distilling scene when we started yet. So there's been the old government-owned behemoth, which is now listed and combined with a similar company from Norway. And then there's been a couple of smaller distilleries that started after we joined the EU and the market got liberated from the yoke of the government-owned monopoly. So the government used to import, sell, manufacture. They did it all. And the first two distilleries after we joined the EU started, I think like 2003, 2004, distilling some whiskey. And we started 2014 alongside a couple of others. So there's now like a very small scene. It's a very interesting scene since our raw materials are so peculiar, but it's still very crafty out there. So you won't see a lot of Finnish distilleries popping up anytime soon.
Yeah. And so then with Kyrö, like we mentioned, rye was the sort of main focus, but and you wanted to make whiskey primarily, right? Is that how it went? And then the gin thing happened, and then it got quite a lot of awards and things like that, and that seemed like a good idea too.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely started with the idea of rye whiskey, but when we thought about rye as a grain, what can we do with it? Whiskey is obviously interesting from the fact that we can leave a lot of dirt in. So a lot of the taste components that rye has, we can leave in, and we can really have them taste. Whereas white spirit, we thought vodka would be really boring. But gin is interesting in the sense that with rye, if we work it right, we can leave it as a very interesting canvas. So if you drink our gin, if you can taste rye, you've got much better taste buds than I do. I mean, it's for us, it really is a canvas that you paint on, but it is a particular canvas because we've tried our gin recipe on barley alcohol base, on a potato alcohol base, and the gin turns wildly different, although you can't taste the exact rye component. So yeah. I think it's you can take rye into various directions, and for us, the gin came in when we were thinking, okay, what can we do with rye? And Finland has this other great thing, which is it's called the everyman's right, which means that I can go in to any plot of land, whether it's your land, whether it's government land, whether it's a company's land, and I can pick anything and everything that grows wild, berries, botanicals, mushroom, whatever. So we just figured that this is a great component actually to start combining this foraging culture that we are very known of with the rye alcohol base, and hence gin is quite a no-brainer.
Yeah, sure. Just for anyone that's not totally familiar with gin production, because we might have some relative newcomers to the category. Obviously there's the botanical side of gin, which we'll get into a little bit more about Miika's particular gin, but there's the base spirit, which is effectively a vodka. It's a neutral spirit, neutral in character, or at least mostly neutral, as Miika's just alluded to. It does sometimes provide some kind of flavor or characteristic to the product, and that neutral spirit can be made from anything basically, but it's typically grain based. You can use, I suppose you could use sugarcane, or grapes are used sometimes as well. But this is interesting. So you're not saying you can't pick up the rye characteristic. You can't pick up anything particularly rye about it. But if you switch it for a different base spirit, it's noticeably different, and that's quite interesting.
Yeah, as I said, it is a very particular canvas. So like in painting, depending on the material you use, your watercolor is going to seem or turn out wildly different, or whatever materials you use. So the same with gin, and you're right. I think I drove too deep already, but yeah, the rye for us has to be like, we only work with local rye, so it has to be local rye that we distill, whether it's the whiskey or the gin. That's the core of the whole distillery and our ethos. But then on top of that, then we can build different things. So whiskey we take here, and with the gin we start adding those local botanicals like birch leaves and meadowsweet and sea buckthorn that we have in Kyrö gin, that then make up the whole. But yeah, it needs that foundation, and for us the foundation is rye.
Yeah, cool. So so speaking of botanicals, let's actually talk sort of broadly about the gin first in terms of its flavor profile. What were you going for here? You wanted to obviously incorporate some of these local forage botanicals, but I mean, I know the gin, I've tasted it. It's not sort of a wildly weird gin. It's one of these ones where you're like, I can't taste the juniper, and this sort of reminds me of some sweet, or Candia when I was a kid. So you wanted sort of I mean, I'm putting words in your mouth here, but do you want it to sort of be a quintessentially classic gin just with a couple of like tweaks to it? Is that it?
Yeah, that's right. So we didn't want to confine ourselves into a London dry, because we didn't want to call our gin a London dry gin in the first place. I mean, we are from a new region. We have to develop our own culture around gin and whiskey and everything we do. So We wanted to go our own way, but we also did not want to break the category in the sense that, you saw with flavored vodka back in the day, going weird bubblegum and whatever flavors. And now it's happened to gin too. So we wanted something that's clearly enjoyable as gin, but then it has to have some sort of like a soul that ties it to what we do and where we are. And that's kind of what we wanted to put in there. So we wanted to bottle a Finnish summer day, essentially. So when you're in a sauna, you get out in the countryside, you're going to have your birch, you're going to have your meadowsweet there. So the scents will be in the air. And when you go out foraging, berries like cranberry and sea buckthorn up in the sort of northwest coast where we are very typical. So that soul has to live and has to sort of tell about where we are and who we are.
I love that. It's like it's taking a journey to Finland or to your particular region of Finland and kind of getting some of the flora that's native to that area encapsulated in gin. I mean, that's kind of what gin is, really, isn't it? It's it's a concentration of those botanical characteristics, and it would be a shame not to celebrate the stuff that's growing around you, especially since some of it's really interesting and kind of awesome in its flavor profile and aroma and everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, dipping to the origins of gin, when alcohol being distilled or soda distilled in back then in Netherlands or in the UK, it was so terrible that you had to cover the taste with something, and you worked with what you have locally, and juniper berries were great for covering taste. Obviously now we can be much more nuanced about it, but the juniper is still leading, but now instead of covering the rankness of the alcohol, you can actually expound on both the base alcohol and your local characteristics in the liquid. And I think having that thought in your head about what are we going for. We hadn't designed a gin before. None of us founding team were from the industry, so we had to have some sort of like a starting point of where are we going with this, because otherwise we would never know when this is ready. We would just keep on tweaking and taking it to maybe a weird direction and going down a rabbit hole eventually. But now you're in Finland and you come out of the sauna, you have a drink, and it kind of blends in and blends you in with your surroundings.
Nice. Well, I'm going to have a drink in the sauna and I've probably lost about half a litre of water already. So while we're mixing drinks, I think we're both making gin and tonics. This one, San Francisco Spirits Competition, which is like was it the International Spirits Tasting Championship? Which one was it?
The first big award was International Wines and Spirits.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, and you won World's Best Gin and Tonic, right?
Yeah, and that was when we had just finalized the recipe, and that was the only competition we sent it in, because we figured this is the biggest competition out there. Let's really test what we're about. And I was doing my 3-day summer vacation, which is what you do as a startup entrepreneur, and cycling in Estonia. And then I got a call from UK and somebody from the IWSR organization was telling me that, we've never heard about you, but you've won the category. So you might be wanting to make some more gin. And I called my co-founder and head distiller Kalle, saying that, I don't know what this means. I don't think you know what this means, but let's do some more gin. And we shot up from our planned, I think 20,000 bottles or so to 100,000 in half a year. So it was a big thing for us, because thanks. We Finns love that somebody notices us. We're so remote and whatever, that whenever we get something big like noticed by the outside world, it's great for us.
Yeah, sure. Well, deservedly so. It is a great gin. So I think on your website, it's you recommend garnishing with rosemary and cranberry. Is that right?
Yeah, that's what I'm doing here. Well, actually, I'm cheating a bit. since it's past Christmas and we're not in Finland, it's really hard to find cranberries. So I've got red currants, but I think the essence there is what we were thinking about with the garnish is that the rosemary highlights. It works really well, especially with the birch leaves in the gin, and you get this, foresty sensation there. And then the berries, obviously they do provide color, but when you bite into one, you get that bitterness that's kind of also inherent in our gin. So it's a floral, very herbal start in the beginning, then going slightly berry bitterness in the end. So it's a great combo.
Well, I'm glad you didn't get hold of cranberries either. Neither did I. So I used blue because I figure blueberries it looks like a cross between a juniper and a cranberry, right?
Yeah, it's a good call. It's a good call, and very common in Finland. Very, very common.
Oh, that's good to hear as well. I didn't realize there was a lot of blueberries in Finland. It's very tasty. So just going back to the botanicals, there's a few in there that are uncommon. Maybe we just run through the sort of local ones or any of the unique ones quickly, and just if you could describe what they are contributing towards the gin, like the birch leaves and the meadowsweet, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's the meadowsweet, which you can really pick up on the nose and in the front of the palate. It gives off this honeyed floralness, which is a really lovely taste combination, and it kind of draws you in, whether it's on the nose, or on the palate. Then the next one you'll pick up is the birch leaves. It's almost like this mentally freshness on the mid palate there, which starts transforming the florality to a much more sort of herbality, or herbaceousness, I would say, towards the mid palate. And then in the end, sea buckthorn is a very sort of, it's like a Arctic coastal berry. So you do get it in Scotland. I think you even get it in parts of England, but there's a lot of it where we are up in northwestern Finland. And it's very sort of almost like a acerbic berry if you bite into it. But when you distill it, it turns into this fresh vanilla, and it's got an incredible, for instance, vitamin C content, which we won't advertise our drinks with health properties, obviously, but if you have like a shot of sea buckthorn juice, it'll be good for you, I guarantee. And then the cranberry, you don't taste the cranberry, but it works like a lot of botanicals can either lengthen or widen the taste palette. The cranberry really lengthens and strengthens the end and provides backbone to the whole taste. So those are the four key components that are very, very endemic to where we are.
Nice. Well, I think it's fantastic. I think one of the key things about making a gin is that it's got to work in the classics. So whether it's gin and tonics, martinis, Collinses and fizzes, even things like Clover Clubs, stuff like that. And it's so surprising. You get these gins sometimes where they've got like, the balance just isn't there. There's one botanical or two that are sort of poking their head above the wall more than the rest. And that somehow gets amplified when you dilute it into a cocktail or when you mix it with certain ingredients. And I know from drinking this in gin and tonics, and I've had it in martinis before, that it performs well in these cocktails, which is good.
Yeah, I mean, you got to do it if you want your gin to be actually drunk. You can't go on saying that. I recommend you drink it neat and add some black pepper to it. I mean, it's just fine. There's a lot of room for innovation, but in the end, it's about you want to drink a good drink and be connected to the story somehow in an ideal space. So that's what we wanted to do here. And I think for us, the method of distillation. So we actually use a copper pot still. Obviously, we first distill the rye into a neutral alcohol, then we macerate, but then we use copper pot still to get in some vapor basket components, and in the end, we separately distill the meadowsweet, the birch leaves, tea buckthorn, and cranberry, and combine. So what we're left with is this quite thick liquid. So if you just pour it on its own and swirl it around, you can see it's got some long legs. So there's a lot of the essential oil still there, and we don't kill it by adding more neutral alcohol, which is a common thing that you do in gin nowadays. So you get this big mouthfeel, but you also get a lot of strength into your, whether it's your gin and tonic, whether it's your martini or other cocktail. It really stands up there.
Yeah. I think it's smart distilling some of the botanicals separately as well. Particularly like, I mean, a lot of these products, I mean, you know better than me, but I assume there's sort of variability in quality or intensity of flavor, if not quality, from time to time. And so, if you're lumping everything in together to the same recipe every time, your recipe is going to change, or not your recipe, the resulting product is going to change slightly. Whereas, this approach to distilling at least some of them separately means that you can blend afterwards and always blend to that same level. You can have a reference gin and then go, right, that's how much meadowsweet should be coming through, and adjust appropriately if it needs to be adjusted,
Exactly. And this is what really allows us to work with fresh components. So if you're just distilling a classic London dry, you'd always have all of your components dried out. Yeah. And when you work with the dry botanicals, it's much easier to just slam them into your still and have the alcohol vapors coming through, and it kind of evens out in the end. But when you work with fresh ingredients, like for us, if we go out and pick our birch leaves around midsummer, so end of June, and this year, it was a really rainy June, so you're going to end up with very different both profile and strength in the leaves versus the previous year. So what essentially we have is, like, every year turns out a different vintage. But we wouldn't go maybe that far as to call it vintage like you do in wine, but you have to control for it. And every Monday, every Thursday before 9 a.m. when our palates are at their best, all our distillery staff gathers together and does a triple blind testing on the liquid. We want to uphold the quality. We want to uphold the profile, but it requires a lot of work.
Yeah. Speaking of birch, look what I've got.
Ooh, you've got an actual whisk, or a vasta, as we say.
It's a Finnish one as well, imported from Finland. Although this one's got some birch, but it's got chamomile in it as well. It's a herbal one.
Wow. Yeah.
Very nice.
You're making me so envious, man. It's terrible.
Miika, the invitation is open to come down. You should come down to Cornwall, do a little tour around, and do some tastings, and we can spend some time in the sauna together.
I definitely should.
Because I need a partner. My wife doesn't come in here very much. She's probably watching this now. She won't come in here with me. And I'm all on my own.
I'll steal every chance I get to go to a sauna, so you're on.
Look, cool. That's fantastic. Have we missed anything? Is there any other important things that we should talk about in terms of the gin or the distillery before we finish up?
No, I think this sort of covers the basics. I mean, everybody who's watching, listening, feel free to get in touch. We'll always be happy to talk more about what we do and tell you everything that there is to know. Our website will have more drinks, tea details, and cocktails. And also, if you'd ever wander up in the north, come either in the middle of the winter when it's beautiful but frosty, or in August when it's our distillery festival time. So mid-August, there's kind of the who's who of Finnish indie music at our distillery, and some great food, and obviously gin on tap. So it's a great party.
Nice, that sounds good. I want to get up there, that's for sure.
Yeah,
it looks like a part of the world, and lovely people as well, I might add, in my experience. And the other thing I would say to our listeners today is try the whiskey too, because their rye whiskey is very, very good. I would say it's one of the best European-made rye whiskies on the market, in fact.
Thank you. We do try, and like with the gin, with the rye, I think we need to plow our own way and we're not copying what they do in Scotland. We're not copying what they do in the US. We're just doing our own Finnish way.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thanks for your time, Miika, and thanks everyone for tuning in. We will see you next month.